Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to have you here. And wow, let me tell you, if I knew how easy it was to make rage bait, I would have done that a long time ago because the engagement that I got from that last video was fantastic, I must say. I appreciated all of the comments and, just everybody sort of sharing their experience and everything. Even for the people that were kind of nasty and left me nasty comments, all of that really helps out the channel. So thank you to everyone that participated in the discussion. It was very entertaining, something that really gave me a lot to think about over the whole week. It really was productive, at least for me. I don't know. Some of the inter-conversations that you guys were having with each other, I don't know if those were very productive, but regardless, something very interesting to think about and certainly, an interesting case study. So what I want to do today, I wanted to continue kind of talking about this sort of idea of Italian identity because it was something that was really contested a lot in the comment section from the last video. And I thought that I could just expand on this. It's something I want to make clear, in the video that I made last week, I never stated my opinion about anything, okay? All I did was give historical context and then shared my own personal experience as someone having grown up in a supposed Italian-American family, okay? Now, for some reason, people don't like that approach to arguments. I think that people they want to be told what to think, okay? Sometimes I really believe that. They want to be told what to think. That's just not my style, right? I like to present ideas and let you guys kind of explore those ideas on your own. I'm not someone that just wants to implant ideas on you. So a lot of these arguments were kind of interesting because it was almost like they were putting words in my mouth or making it seem like I was trying to make a certain argument or force a certain agenda. And that's just not the case. That's not even my personality. And if you knew me on a personal level, you would know that. But something that came up that was also really curious to me was I made this claim that in the United States, there was a period of time where Italians were not considered white. Italian immigrants that had moved to the U.S. We're talking about, in the early stages of the development of what is now the United States of America. But yeah, this was a prolonged period of time where they were considered othered and not necessarily a third race, but they just weren't considered white. And to quote exactly, not quite white, right? And that meant that they didn't have certain rights and privileges and so on. This is not my personal opinion, okay? This is historical fact. And as a matter of fact, there are many a book and many a dissertation that have been written on this topic. Again, this is not Ashley's personal opinion. This is something that is well researched. And as a matter of fact, there's actually a really great channel on YouTube. I'm going to link her main video about this series regarding like how Italians became white and all of that within the American context. I'm going to link it in the description of this video so that you guys can see it, because if you're interested in that history, it's really worth looking into. A lot of the comments that were kind of coming after me were about this. And I even said in the video, if you watched it, I even said that, I'm not here to debate whether or not Italians are white or not, because that's a whole different subject, right? But I know a lot of you didn't get that far because I can see the stats on my analytics, and a lot of you didn't get past the 4-minute mark. So that said, the whole race issue is a really, really controversial thing. I don't know why people get so worked up about race, honestly. Like, why is it so controversial to state something, especially within a historical context, and especially where I'm not even expressing my own personal opinion about this? God forbid I did express my personal opinion. A lot of you wouldn't be able to probably handle that. But anyway, this is a really hot topic. And, this is currently even a hot topic within Italy because, as I stated, again, in the last video, people that are born of other immigrant groups here in Italy are not necessarily granted automatic citizenship, right? And so they're not necessarily considered Italian under Italian law. This is something that is widely contested and argued by lots and lots of different people. What I said in the last video was that people that don't consider Italian Americans to be Italian, which is fine, by the way. You can have that opinion. That's your opinion. they wouldn't consider Italian Americans Italian, but they also are probably the same people that wouldn't consider a child of immigrant parents born in Italy Italian either. And I find that argument to be contradictory. I had an experience one time that really kind of shook me and upset me in a way. So basically, years ago, I had gotten a permesso di soggiorno for a student visa years and years ago. And when I went to the local questura here to get it done, there was a woman working in the questura office and the immigration office that was, I believe she was Senegalese. Anyway, she had Italian citizenship. She had eventually been granted Italian citizenship after a long period of time. But we were chatting there, and one of the officers that was of Italian origin, born and raised in Italy, obviously, he said to me when he saw my last name and he saw that my last name was Italian, he was like, "Why are you here as an immigrant? Why don't you get your citizenship? Blah, 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 blah." And he said, "You're more Italian than she is." And that really shook me. That really made me think about the way that things are conceptualized. Now, I don't agree with that, right? I actually found what he said to be appalling. And this woman that was working in the office, she didn't say anything. She didn't even have a reaction to that. But it just made me realize how controversial and how deep this topic is within Italian society. Now, another argument that people made in the comment section was that, that Italy as a country is a relatively new unified nation, right? And I understand this because prior to the unification of Italy, these were very distinct regions with very distinct cultures, very distinct languages, food traditions, dances, all that kind of stuff. So I do really think that this is something interesting to think about, like, what is the Italian identity if it's a relatively new concept? I also did think it was kind of ironic how many people in the comment section were like, well, the United States is a new country. And I'm like, well, technically also so is Italy in a way, like if you want to look at it from that perspective. And I talked about this in one of my recent videos, the North and South divide, which again is another really rage bait discussion that we could have. But there are some huge differences from north to south in terms, again, of language, culture, and so on. So that's a really interesting argument to make, and something that made me really think over the last week. When it comes down to languages and dialects as well, and I do plan on making a topic about this because there's some debate as to whether or not these are dialects or languages, and from a linguistic perspective, I think this is something that should be talked about, but that's a topic for another discussion. A lot of people in the comment section referred to standard Italian, and I found that to be really interesting too, because yes, there is a standard Italian, I guess, on the books, on record, okay? But how many of you guys actually use standard Italian? I am hard pressed to find anyone that I've run into all over the country, and I've traveled a lot of Italy. I stay primarily here in the South, but I've traveled a lot of Italy, and I'm hard pressed to find a person that uses standard Italian. Most people speak Italian with very strong regional accents, at least, if not with the influence of various different languages or various different dialects, right? And I think that this whole argument of, well, you have to be able to speak Italian in order to be considered Italian, an interesting argument. There are actually a lot of people that I've met here in Calabria that don't speak Italian, right? They speak in their local languages or dialects. And so this conversation about the language makes you part of a certain group of people, yes, I can agree to that to some extent, but I think that there are many examples where that's not true. I think Arabic is a perfect example, right? There are lots of countries that speak Arabic as a language, but they wouldn't consider themselves Arabs, right? All that to say, again, the point of making this video, just as the last one, is to open a discussion. And I want to be very clear about that, because I think sometimes people think that I'm pushing my ideas on you. I'm not pushing my ideas on you. I really don't care that you think like I do. I'm a teacher, a linguist, and somebody that likes to share ideas. And that's one of the reasons that I made this channel, because I like sharing ideas. I like sharing information. And even if I don't agree with you, I'm perfectly fine with that. I even engaged with a couple of you in the comment section just because I found your ideas and your perspectives interesting. I might not have agreed with them, but I did find them interesting, and I kind of wanted to explore those ideas more. I appreciate those of you that did that in a very respectful way. So thank you very much for that, because it was enlightening. I want to know from you guys, about that aspect. You know, what is it that you consider to make a person Italian? A lot of you already discussed it in the last comment section. But again, a lot of these concepts are things that unless you're really involved in the culture, you live in Italy, or you're part of a Italo whatever community outside of Italy, then, you know, you probably wouldn't know that much about this topic and you wouldn't have any really strong opinions about it. As per usual, I don't have any really strong opinions about this particular topic either. It's just something that I think is interesting to explore, and it's also an interesting concept to discuss with people that follow this channel. If you like this content and you find it interesting, you want to see more, then please like, share, comment, subscribe. All of that really helps out the channel, and it certainly boosted this channel last week. I got almost 100 new subscribers just from last week's video within the last 6 days as of recording this. The objective of this channel is ultimately to share information and to share ideas, and you guys giving me that kind of engagement really helps me to be able to do that, so I appreciate it so much. That said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.